Hi guys, I'm back. Today I'm going to read Daniel 1-5, Proverbs 13, and Psalm 43. Let's get started. It was the third year that Jehoiakim was king of Judah. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. His army surrounded the city and attacked it. The Lord handed Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, over to him. Nebuchadnezzar also took some of the objects from God's temple. He carried them off to the temple of his god in Babylon. He put them among the treasures of his god. The king gave Ashpenaz an order. Ashpenaz was the chief of Nebuchadnezzar's court officials. The king told him to bring him some of the Israelites. The king wanted them to serve him in his court. He wanted nobles and men from the royal family. He was looking for young men who were healthy and handsome. They had to be able to learn anything. They had to be well educated. They had to have the ability to understand new things quickly and easily. The king wanted men who could serve in his palace. Ashpenaz was supposed to teach them the Babylonian language and writing. The king had his servants give them food and wine from his own table. They received a certain amount every day. The young men had to be trained for 3 years. After that, they could begin to serve the king. Some of their men were chosen from Judah. Their names were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. He gave Daniel the name Belteshazzar. He gave Hananiah the name Shadrach. He gave Mishael the name Meshach. And he gave Azariah the name Abednego. Daniel decided not to make himself unclean by eating the king's food and drinking his wine. So he asked the chief official for a favor. He wanted permission not to make himself unclean with the king's food and wine. God has caused the official to be kind and friendly to Daniel, but the official refused to do what Daniel asked for. He said, "I'm afraid of the king. He is my master. He has decided what you and your 3 friends must eat and drink. Other young men are the same age as you. Why should he see you looking worse than them? When he sees how you look, he might kill me." So Daniel spoke to one of the guards. The chief official had appointed him over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Daniel said to him, "Please test us for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat, and give us only water to drink. Then compare us with the young men who eat the king's food. See how we look. After that, do what you want to." So the guard agreed. He tested them for 10 days. After the 10 days, Daniel and his friends looked healthy and well fed. In fact, they looked better than any of the young men who ate the king's food. So the guard didn't require them to eat the king's food. He didn't require them to drink the king's wine either. He gave them vegetables instead. God gave knowledge and understanding to these 4 young men, so they understood all kinds of writings and subjects, and Daniel could understand all kinds of visions and dreams. The 3 years the king had set for their training ended, so the chief official brought them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them. He didn't find anyone equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, so they began to serve the king. He asked them for advice in matters that required wisdom and understanding. The king always found their answers to be the best. Other men in his kingdom claimed to get knowledge by using magic, but the answers of Daniel and his friends were 10 times better than theirs. Daniel served in Babylon until the first year Cyrus ruled over the land of Babylon. Cyrus was king of Persia. Chapter 2. In the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's rule, he had a dream. His mind was troubled. He couldn't sleep. So the king sent for those who claimed to get knowledge by using magic. He also sent for those who practiced evil magic and those who studied the heavens. He wanted to tell him what he had dreamed. They came and stood in front of the king. He said to them, "I had a dream. It troubled me, so I want to know what it means." Then those who studied the heavens answered the king. They spoke in Aramaic. They said, "King Nebuchadnezzar, may you live forever. Tell us what you dreamed, and we'll explain what it means." The king replied to them, "I have made up my mind. You must tell me what I dreamed, and you must tell me what it means. If you don't, I will have you cut to pieces, and I'll have your houses turned into piles of trash. So tell me what I dreamed. Explain it to me. Then I will give you gifts. I will reward you. I will give you great honor. So tell me the dream, and tell me what it means." Once more they replied, "King Nebuchadnezzar, tell us what you dreamed. Then we'll tell you what it means." The king answered, "I know what you are doing. You tried to gain more time. You realize that I've made up my mind. You must tell me the dream. If you don't, you'll pay for it. You have gotten together and made evil plans. You hope things will change. So you are telling me lies, but I want you to tell me what I dreamed. Then I'll know what you can tell me, that you can tell me what it means. But they answered the king, there is no one on earth who can do what you are asking. No king has ever asked for anything like that. Not even a king as great as mighty as you have asked for it. Those who get knowledge by using magic have never been asked to do what you are asking. And those who study the heavens haven't been asked to do it either. What you are asking is much too hard. No one can tell you what you dreamed except the gods, and they don't live among human beings. That made the king very angry. He ordered that all the wise men in Babylon be put to death. So the order was given to kill them. Men were sent out to look for Daniel and his friends. They were also supposed to be put to death. Arioch was the commander of the king's guard. He went out to put the wise men of Babylon to death. So Daniel spoke to him wisely and carefully. He asked the king's officer, why did Nebuchadnezzar give a terrible order like that? Then Arioch explained to Daniel what was going on. Then, when Daniel heard that, he went to the king. He told him he would explain the dream to him, but he needed more time. Then Daniel returned to his house. He explained everything to his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He asked them to pray that the God of heaven would give him mercy. He wanted God to help him understand the mystery of the king's dream. Then he and his friends would be killed along with Babylon's other wise men. During that night, God gave Daniel a vision. He showed him what the mystery was all about. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven. He said, may God be praised forever and ever. He is wise and powerful. He changes times and seasons. He removes some kings from power. He causes other kings to rule. The wisdom from those who are wise comes from him. He gives knowledge to those who have understanding. He explains deep and hidden things. He knows what happens in the darkest places, and where he is, everything is light. God of my people, all of them go. I thank and praise you. You have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what we asked you for. You've shown us the king's dream. Then Daniel went to Arioch. The king had appointed him to put the wise men of Babylon to death. Daniel said to him, don't kill the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king. I'll tell him what his dream means. So Arioch took Daniel to the king at once. Arioch said, I have found a man among those you brought here from Judah. He can tell you what your dream means. Nebuchadnezzar spoke to Daniel, who was also called Belteshazzar. The king asked him, are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream? And can you tell me what it means? Daniel replied, you have asked us to explain a mystery to you, but no wise man can do that. And those who try to figure things out by using magic can't do it either. But there is a God in heaven who can explain mysteries. King Nebuchadnezzar, he has shown you what is going to happen. Here is what you dreamed while lying in bed, and here are the visions that passed through your mind. Your Majesty, while you were still in bed, your mind was troubled. You were thinking about things that haven't happened yet. The God who explains mysteries showed these things to you. Now the mystery has been explained to me, but it isn't because I have greater wisdom than anyone else alive. It's because God wants you to know what the mystery means, Your Majesty. He wants you to understand what went through your mind. King Nebuchadnezzar, you looked up and saw a large statue standing in front of you. It was huge. It shone brightly, and it terrified you. The head of the statue was made out of pure gold. Its stomach and thighs were made out of bronze. Its legs were made out of iron. Its chest and arms were made out of silver. And its feet were partly iron and partly baked clay. While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but human hands didn't do it. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay. It smashed them, so the iron and clay were broken to pieces. So were the bronze, silver, and gold. All of them were broken to pieces. They became like straw on the threshing floor at harvest time. The wind blew them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain. It filled the whole earth. This was your dream. Now I'll tell you what it means. King Nebuchadnezzar, you are the greatest king of all. The God of heaven has given you might and glory. Has given you authority and power. He has given you might and glory. He has put everyone under your control. He has also given you authority over the white animals and the birds in the sky. It doesn't matter where they live. He's made you ruler over all of them. You are that head of God. After you, another kingdom will take over. It won't be as powerful as yours. Next, a third kingdom will rule over the whole earth. The bronze part of the statue stands for that kingdom. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom. It will be as strong as iron. Iron breaks and smashes everything to pieces, and the fourth kingdom will crush and break all the others. You saw that the feet and toes were made out of iron and baked clay, and the fourth kingdom will be divided up, but it will still have some of the strength of iron. That's why you saw iron mixed with clay, and the toes were partly iron and partly clay. And the fourth kingdom will be partly strong and partly weak. You saw the iron mixed with the baked clay, and the fourth kingdom will be made up of all kinds of people. They won't hold together any more than iron mixes with clay. In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom. It will never be destroyed, and no other nation will ever take it over. It will crush all those other kingdoms. It will bring them to an end, but it will last forever. That's what the vision of the rock cut out of the mountain means. Human hands didn't cut the rock. They broke the statue to pieces. They smashed the iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold. The great God has shown you what will take place in days to come. The dream is true, and you can trust the meaning of it that I have explained to you. Then King Nebuchadnezzar bowed low in front of Daniel. He wanted to honor him, so he ordered that an offering of an incense be offered up to him. The king said to Daniel, I'm sure your God is the greatest God of all. He is the Lord of kings. He explains mysteries. That's why you were able to explain the mystery of my dream. Then the king put Daniel in a position of authority. He gave him many gifts. He made him ruler over the city of Babel and the towns around him. He put him in charge of all its other wise men. The king also did what Daniel asked him to. He appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to help Daniel govern Babel and the towns around it. Daniel himself remained at the royal court. Chapter 3. King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue. It was 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. He set it up on the plain of Jura near the city of Babel. Then the king sent for the royal rulers and high officials and governors. He sent for the advisors, treasurers, judges, and court officers, and he sent for all the other officials of Babel. He asked them to come to a special gathering to honor the statue he had set up. So the royal rulers, high officials, and governors came together. So did the advisors, treasurers, judges, and court officers. All the other officials joined them. They came to honor the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then they stood in front of it. Then a messenger called out loudly, Listen, you people who come from every nation. Pay attention, you who speak other languages. Here's what the king commands you to do. You'll soon hear the sounds of horns and flutes. You'll hear zithers, lyres, harps, and pipes. In fact, you'll hear all kinds of music. When you do, you must fall down and worship the god statue. That is the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. If you don't, you will be thrown into a blazing furnace right away. All the people heard the sound of the horns and flutes. They heard the zithers, lyres, harps, and other musical instruments. As soon as they did, they fell down and worshipped Nebuchadnezzar's gold statue. There were people from all nations, no matter what language they spoke. At this time, some people who studied the heavens came forward. They spoke against the Jews. They said, King Nebuchadnezzar, may you live forever. Your Majesty has commanded everyone to fall down and worship the god statue. You told them to do it when they heard the horns, flutes, zithers, lyres, harps, pipes, and other musical instruments. If they didn't, they would be thrown into a blazing furnace. But you have appointed some Jews to help Daniel govern Babel and the towns around it. Their names are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They don't pay any attention to King Nebuchadnezzar. They won't serve your gods, and they refuse to worship the gold statue you have set up. Nebuchadnezzar was very angry. He sent for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they were brought to him. The king said to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Is what I heard about you true? Don't you serve my gods? Don't you worship the gold statue I set up? You'll hear the horns, flutes, zithers, lyres, harps, pipes, and other musical instruments. When you do, fall down and worship the statue I made. If you will, that's very good. But if you won't, You will be thrown at once into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to save you from my power? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him. They said, King Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to talk about this anymore. We might be thrown into the blazing furnace, but the God we serve is able to bring us out of it alive. He will save us from your power. But we want you to know this, your majesty. Even if we knew that our God wouldn't save us, we still wouldn't serve your gods. We wouldn't worship the gold statue you set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar was very angry with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The look on his face changed, and he ordered that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. He also gave some of the strongest soldiers in his army a command. He ordered them to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then he told his men to throw them into the blazing furnace. So they were tied up. Then they were thrown into the furnace. They were wearing their robes, pants, turbans, and other clothes. The king's command was carried out quickly. The furnace was so hot that its flames killed the soldiers who threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into it. So the 3 men were firmly tied up, and they fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet. He was so amazed he asked his advisors, Didn't we tie up 3 men? Didn't we throw 3 men into the fire? They replied, Yes, we did, Your Majesty. The king said, Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire. They aren't tied up, and the fire hasn't even harmed them. The 4th man looks like a son of the gods. Then the king approached the opening of the blazing furnace. He shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, come out, you who serve the Most High God, come here. So they came out of the fire. The royal rulers, high officials, governors, and advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire hadn't harmed their bodies. Not one hair on their heads was burnt. Their robes weren't burned either, and they didn't even smell like smoke. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, May the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be praised. He sent his angel and saved his servants. They trusted in him. They refused to obey my command. They were willing to give up their lives. They would rather die than serve or worship any god except their own God. No other God can save people this way. So I'm giving an order about the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. No one may say anything against him. That's true no matter what language they speak. If they say anything against him, they'll be cut to pieces, and their houses will be turned into piles of trash. Then the king honored Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He gave them high positions in the city of Babylon and the towns around it. Chapter 4. I, King Nebuchadnezzar, am writing this letter. I am sending it to people who live all over the world. I am sending it to people of every nation, no matter what language they speak. May you have great success. I am pleased to tell you what has happened. The Most High God has done miraculous signs and wonders for me. His signs are great. His wonders are mighty. His kingdom will last forever. His rule will never end. I was at home in my palace. I was content and very successful, but I had a dream that made me afraid. I was lying in bed. Then dreams and visions passed through my mind. They terrified me. So I commanded that all the wise men in Babylon be brought to me. I wanted them to tell me what my dream meant. Those who tried to figure things out by using magic came. So did those who studied the heavens. I told all of them what I had dreamed, but they couldn't tell me what it meant. Finally Daniel came to me. He is called Belteshazzar, after the name of my God. The spirit of the holy gods is in him. I told him my dream. I said, Belteshazzar, you are chief of the magicians. I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you. No mystery is too hard for you to figure out. Here's my dream. Tell me what it means. Here are the visions I saw while I was lying in bed. I looked up and saw a tree standing in the middle of the land. It was very tall. It had grown to be large and strong. Its top touched the sky. It could be seen anywhere on earth. Its leaves were beautiful. It had a lot of fruit on it. It provided enough food for people and animals. Under the tree, the wild animals found safety. The birds lived in its branches. Every creature was fed from that tree. While I was still lying in bed, I looked up. In my visions, I saw a holy one. He was a messenger. He was coming down from heaven. He called out in a loud voice. He said, Cut down the tree, break off its branches, strip off its leaves, scatter it free. Let the animals under it run away. Let the birds in its branches fly off, but leave the stump with its roots in the ground. Let it stay in the field. Put a band of iron and bronze around it. Let King Nebuchadnezzar become wet with the dew of heaven. Let him live with animals among the plants of the earth. Let him no longer have the mind of a man. Instead, let him be given the mind of an animal. Let him stay that way until 7 periods of time pass by. The decision is announced by holy messengers, so all who are alive will know that the Most High God is King. He rules over all kingdoms on earth. He gives them to anyone he wants. Sometimes he puts the least important people in charge of them. This is the dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had. Now tell me what it means, Belteshazzar. None of the wise men in my kingdom can explain it to me, but you can. After all, the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Daniel, who was also called Belteshazzar, was very bewildered for a while. His thoughts terrified him. So the king said, Belteshazzar, don't let the dream of its meaning make you afraid. Belteshazzar answered, My master, I wish the dream were about your enemies. I wish its meaning had to do with them. You saw a tree. It grew to be large and strong. Its top touched the sky. It could be seen from anywhere on earth. Its leaves were beautiful. It had a lot of fruit on it. It provided enough food for people and animals. Under the tree, the wild animals found safety. The birds lived in its branches. Your Majesty, you are that tree. You have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky. Your rule has spread to all parts of the earth. Your Majesty, you saw a holy man. He was a messenger. He came down from heaven. He said, Cut down the tree, destroy it, but leave the stump with its roots in the ground. Let it stay in the field. Put an iron and bronze band around it. Let King Nebuchadnezzar become wet with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the wild animals. Let him stay that way until 7 periods of time pass by. Your Majesty, here's what your dream means. The Most High God has given an order against you. You will be driven away from people. You will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass just as an ox does. You will become wet with the dew of heaven. 7 periods of time will pass by for you. Then you will recognize the Most High God rules over all kingdoms on earth. He gives them to anyone he wants. But he gave a command to leave the stump of the tree along with its roots. That means your kingdom will be given back to you. It will happen when you recognize that the God of heaven rules. So, Your Majesty, I hope you will accept my advice. Stop being simple. Do what is right. Give up your evil practices and show kindness to those who are being treated badly. Then perhaps things will continue to go well with you. All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. It took place 12 months later. He was walking on the roof of his palace in Babylon. He said, Isn't this the great Babylon I have built as a place for my royal palace? I used my mighty power to build it. It shows how glorious my majesty is. He was still speaking when he heard a voice from heaven. It said, King Nebuchadnezzar, here's what has been ordered concerning you. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from people. You will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass just as an ox does. 7 periods of time will pass by you. Then you will recognize that the Most High God rules over all kingdoms on earth. He gives them to anyone he wants. What had been said about King Nebuchadnezzar came true at once. He was driven away from people. He ate grass just as an ox does, and his body became wet with the dew of heaven. He stayed that way until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle. His nails became like the claws of a bird. At the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up toward heaven. My mind became clear again. Then I praised the Most High God. I gave honor and glory to the God who lives forever. His rule will last forever. His kingdom will never end. He considers all the nations on earth to be nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven. He does what he wants with the nations of the earth. No one can hold back his hand. No one can say to him, What have you done? My honor and glory were returned to me when my mind became clear again. The glory of my kingdom was given back to me. My advisors and neighbors came to me, and I was put back on my throne. I became even greater than I had been before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, give praise and honor and glory to the King of heaven. Everything he does is right. All his ways are fair. He's able to bring down those who live proudly. Chapter 5. King Belshazzar gave a huge banquet. He invited 1,000 of his nobles to it. He drank wine with them. While Belshazzar was drinking his wine, he gave orders to his servants. He commanded them to bring in some gold and silver cups. They were the cups his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. Belshazzar had them brought in so everyone could drink from them. That included the king himself, his nobles, his wives, and his concubines. So the servants brought in the gold cups. The cups had been taken from God's temple in Jerusalem. The king and his nobles drank from them. So did his wives and concubines. As they drank the wine, they praised their gods. The statues of those gods were made out of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, or stone. Suddenly the fingers of a human hand appeared. They wrote something on the plaster of the palace wall. It happened near the lampstand. The king watched the hand as it broke. His face turned pale. He was so afraid that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking together. The king sent for those who tried to figure out things by using magic. He used to send for those who studied the heavens. All of them were wise men and big. Then the king spake to them. He said, I want one of you to read this writing. I want you to tell me what it means. Whoever does this will be dressed in purple clothes. A gold chain will be put around his neck, and he will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom. Then all the king's wise men came in, but they couldn't read the writing. They couldn't tell him what it meant. So King Belshazzar became even more terrified. His face grew more pale, and his nobles were bewildered. The queen heard the king and his nobles talk. So she came into the dining hall. King Belshazzar, may you live forever, she said. Don't be afraid. Don't look so pale. I know a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy gods in him. He has understanding and wisdom and good sense, just like the gods. He was chief of those who tried to figure things out by using magic, and he was in charge of those who studied the heavens. Your father, King Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him to that position. King Nebuchadnezzar did this because he saw what the man could do. This man's name is Daniel. Your father called him Belteshazzar. He has a clever mind and knowledge and understanding. He is also able to tell what dreams mean. He can explain riddles and solve hard problems. Send for him. He will tell you what the writing means. So Daniel was brought to the king. The king said to him, Are you Daniel? Are you one of the prisoners my father, the king, brought me here from Judah? I have heard that the spirit of the gods is in you. I've also heard that you have understanding, good sense, and special wisdom. The wise men and those who practice magic were brought to me. They were asked to read this writing and tell me what it means, but they couldn't. I have heard that you are able to explain things and solve hard problems. I hope that you can read this writing and tell me what it means. If you can, you'll be dressed in purple clothes. A gold chain will be put around your neck, and you'll be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered the king. He said, You can keep your gift for yourselves. You can give your rewards to someone else, but I will read the writing for you. I'll tell you what it means. Your Majesty, the Most High God was good to your father Nebuchadnezzar. He gave him authority and greatness and glory and honor. God gave him a high position. Then people from every nation became afraid of the king. That was true no matter what language they spoke. The king put to death anyone he wanted to. He spared anyone he wanted to spare. He gave high positions to anyone he wanted to bring down. And he brought down anyone he wanted to bring down. But his heart became very stubborn and proud, so he was removed from his royal throne. His glory was stripped away from him. He was driven away from people. He was given the mind of an animal. He lived with the wild donkeys. He ate grass just as an ox does. His body became white with the dew of heaven. He stayed that way until he recognized that the Most High God rules over all kingdoms on earth. He put anyone he wants to in charge of them. But you knew all that, Belshazzar. After all, you are Nebuchadnezzar's son. In spite of that, you are still proud. You have taken your stand against the Lord of heaven. You had your servants bring cups from his temple too. You and your nobles drank wine from him. So did your wives and concubines. You praised your gods, The statues of those gods are made out of silver, gold, bronze, iron, wood, or stone. They can't see or hear or understand anything. But you didn't honor God. He holds in his hand your very life and everything you do. So he sent the hand that wrote on the wall. Here's what was written. Mene, mene, tekel, parsin. And here's what the words mean. The word mene means that God has limited the time of your rule. He has brought it to an end. The word tekel means that you have been weighed on scales, and you haven't measured up to God's standard. The word peres means that your authority over your kingdom will be taken away from you. You'll be given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar commanded his sons to dress Daniel in a purple cloth. So they did. They put a gold chain around his neck, and he was made the third highest ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, the king of Babylon, was killed. His kingdom was given to Darius the Mede. Darius was 62 years old. Proverbs 13. A wise son pays attention to what his father teaches him, but anyone who makes fun of others doesn't listen to warnings. The good things people say benefit them, but liars love to hurt others. But those who guard what they seek out their lives, but those who seek it out they hear will be destroyed. People who refuse to work want things and get nothing, but the desires of people who work hard are completely satisfied. Those who do right hate what is false, but those who do wrong stink and bring shame on themselves. Doing right guards those who are honest, but evil destroys those who are sinful. Some people pretend to be rich but have nothing. Others pretend to be poor but have great wealth. A person's riches might save their life, but a poor person is not able to do anything about danger. The lights of godly people shine brightly, but the lamps of sinners are blown out. Where there is argument, there is pride, but those who take advice are wise. Money gained the wrong way disappears, but money gathered little by little grows. Hope that is put off makes one sick at heart, but a desire that is made is like a tree of life. Anyone who hates what they are told will pay for it later, but a person who respects a command will be rewarded. The teaching of wise people is like a fountain that gives life. It turns those who listen to it away from the jaws of death. Good judgment wins favor, but the way of those who hurt others lies leads to their ruin. Wise people act with knowledge, but foolish people show how foolish they are. But an evil messenger gets into trouble, but a trusted messenger brings healing. Those who turn away from their training become poor and shame, but those who accept warnings are honored. A desire that is made is like something that tastes sweet, but foolish people hate to turn away from evil. Walk with wise people and become wise. A companion of foolish people suffers harm. Hard times chase those who are simple, but those who do right are rewarded with good things. A good person leaves what they own to their children and grandchildren, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for those who do right. An unplowed field produces food for poor people, but those who treat them badly destroy it all. Those who don't correct their children hate them, but those who love them are careful to correct them. Those who do right eat until they are full, but the stomachs of those who do wrong go hungry. Psalm 43. My God, when you hand down your decision, let it be in my favor. Stand up for me against an unfaithful nation. Save me from those lying and sinful people. You are God, my place of safety. Why have you turned your back on me? Why must I go around in sorrow? Why am I beaten down by my enemies? Send me a light and faithful hand. Let them lead me. Let them bring me back to your holy mountain, to the place where you live. Then I will go to the altar of God. I will go to God. He is my joy and my delight. God, you are my God. I will praise you by playing the lyre. My spirit, why are you so sad? Why are you so upset deep down inside me? Put your hope in God. Once again, I'll have reason to praise him. He is my Savior and my God. Now that's done, I shall now do the Lord's Prayer. Please bow your heads. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts as we also forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. See you tomorrow. Bye.